I want to discuss concepts behind classes and objects. A class is a blueprint for creating objects. This you might heard if you try to learn object-oriented programming. Now we see here that we have declared a public class named variables. This right here we will comment a little bit later and see what it means. But here, as I said, we declared a class named variables. Everything that's between these curly brackets is what the class contains. A class can contain variables, well, integers, doubles, floats, so on and so forth, and it can contain methods, which we saw earlier. Now, how can we create an object from a class? For that, we use a constructor, and constructors, we declare them by using the class's name, in our case variables. So here we can say public variables, and now we declare the constructor. Inside of constructors, usually we initialize variables, or we can call other methods. And we use a constructor to call our class in another class, and that's how can we create an object from that class. Here I have declared a second class, well, named second class, and here I have declared a couple of variables. And we see that we have private, public, and static variables, and I will explain what those mean. And inside of our class here, I will erase this quickly, and here we can call our second class. So we can say second class, and now we can name it s is equal to new second class like this. And now we can call the methods from that class. So we see here that we have a print method which will print called from second class. So here we can use s dot, and this is how we call a method. So here we can say print, and this will call print method from the second class. Now if I go back here into Unity and if I run the program, we will see that called from second class is, well, called or printed out in the console because, well, we are calling this print method, and we see here that we have called from second class, well, printed out using debug.log. Now we see that we have these private, public, and static variables. What this means? Well, private and public are also called visibility modifiers. If a variable is private, it can only be accessed inside of the class itself, or even a method. If a method is private, it can only be accessed inside of that same class. So we see here that we have called a public method called print. If I change it to private and go back here into our class, we see that we cannot access this method. Even if I go here into Unity, we see that we have this error, and we cannot call a private method from another class. So we need to set it to be public in order to do that. The same thing goes for our variables, and we can even access public variables using the dot property the same way we did with our print method. So we can say, well, s.b, and this will access this b integer here, which has a value of 4. We see that we have here static variables. Now, what a static variable is, it means that we can access that variable without an object from, well, that class. So we don't need to say second class s is equal to new second class, create an object from that class, and then use s.print. We can use the name of that class and directly call that method or property. We see here that we have a static method called print static. So I will remove this here, and I will just say second class dot print static. And if I run the program now, we will see that print static, or a static method from second class, has been printed out in the console, which we specified here. Now, regarding private properties, if we want to modify them or access them from another class, we can provide getters and setters. I have provided a getter here, and it will return this property here, and we use return this.a. Now the keyword this refers to this class, referring to this variable here. This.a refers to, well, the variable of this class. If we want to modify this variable, then we will say something like this, public void set a, and here we provide an argument. So let's say int a, and here we will say this.a is equal to a. This means that this, or the variable a from this class, assign the value a to that, well, variable here. And this is how can we access private properties inside other classes. Now regarding this, well, piece of code here, this means that our second class the same way as our variable class, inherits from MonoBehavior class. And this is called inheritance in object-oriented programming. And that means that if one class inherits from another class, it takes all the properties and all the methods from that class the same way as if they are declared inside of that class. And that's why we have this start method and this update method. These methods are actually from MonoBehavior and not from our variables class. And I will not go too much into inheritance because it's not too much important, but this is just to let you know why we have the start method and this update method, and later on when we use getComponent and GameObject.find to, well, fetch other objects and access those properties, that, well, just to let you know, those are inherited properties from MonoBehavior.